Welcome, and in this lesson, we're going to learn how to cover the objective of securely transferring files between machines. So, what we need to do to get set up for this is I've started a linuxacademy.com lab server, and I've started a secondary linuxacademy.com lab server. If you're following along in your own environment, you need to make sure that you have two virtual machines running of two Red Hat or CentOS distributions in order to do this. Again, I'm going to be using linuxacademy.com lab servers. Now, I'm logged in my first one. This is my Anthony 1, and my second one is going to be my Anthony 2 here. Now, what we need to understand for the objective securely transfer files between machines is what constitutes securely. So the way that we do that is we have one of two programs that we're going to learn how to use. We have SCP and SFTP. Both of these programs go over port 22. Port 22 is our SSH port. It's an encrypted port that has encrypted communications between machines. That's how we SSH into a system. It's not plain text information that's being sent over the open internet. So we're going to use SCP and or SFTP. And in this lesson, we're going to use both. SCP is really easy. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have a file. I'm just going to go ahead and create a file. I'm just going to call it my file. And I want to take this file and I want to transfer it to that secondary linuxacademy.com lab server I've created. I very simply will do an SCP, then my file name, which I've called my file. From there, I need to add in the user credentials that I want to connect to. So I'm going to log in with the user, and then my IP address for my specific machine, which is going to be what I just pasted there. So after this, I need to specify where I'm uploading it. I'm going to do a colon, and then I'm going to put in my character to represent, saying my home directory. Because we remember this sequence of characters says the home directory. Now, if I was inside of a home directory, this will go into my /home/user home directory. Let's say I had a subfolder in there, and that subfolder was called dir1. I could place it inside of dir1 by adding dir1 in there, but this is going to represent my user's home directory, which in other words would be /home/user. So we'll just put in our character representation for that, and it'll copy it there. So now all I have to do is hit enter. What it's going to do is it's going to connect to that remote machine, and it's going to ask for my password credentials for my user. So I'm going to enter in my password credentials, and then it's going to copy the contents of that file up to that remote machine. So let's verify this. I'm going to open that remote machine, and I'm going to connect to it as I normally do when I connect to a server. So if I do an ls now, I see that I have my file. Now, if I were to create a new directory called dir1, and I wanted to copy that file into dir1, I could just add the content dir1 on the end of that. So it's going to place it inside of my user's home directory and then directory 1. So if I head into dir1, what I see is that the file's been placed in there. So I can tar files, compress files, and copy those up using SCP. And that's how we use SCP. And again, SCP uses port 22 for secure copying. It's actually called secure copying. It's a secure copying program to copy the file from one location to another. Now, the next method that I want to use SFTP. So to use SFTP, I want to connect to the server that I'm using SFTP on. Now, what we need to understand is by default, if we have OpenSSH installed, I can actually use SFTP because again, that goes over port 22, which is a secure port. If we were using regular FTP, that would generally go over port 21, which is a plain text port. So data transferred between that would be plain text. Easily, a third party can listen and see that information. So we're using secure methods with secure copy and secure file transfer protocol, SFTP. So I'm going to connect to my remote machine. I'm going to connect to it with the user credentials user at my remote machine. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. It's going to ask for my remote password, and we're going to be connected via SFTP. Now, if I want to see a list of available SFTP commands, I can hit in the question mark. But generally, I can navigate as if I was on my local machine. So I can do an ls to list the file contents. And since we're in SFTP, we're actually on that remote machine, that secondary server that we've set up, or in my case, my Anthony 2 server. So next, what I can do is I can navigate into the dir directory. Okay, so I'm going to navigate back out of the dir directory. Let's say I want to download a file. I want to download the VNC how-to instructions. I just type git VNC how-to, and that will download it to my local machine. Now, if I typed quit, and we see that we have VNC how-to, we've downloaded it from our remote machine. So I'm going to connect to it. Now, the way that we do this is when we upload and download files, we're connected to the remote machine we're going to do this on. So let's say that I want to upload a file. If we looked at where I did ls, what I know is inside of my user's home directory on my local machine, not the remote machine where we are at, I have a file called anaconda-ks.cfg. I want to copy that up to my remote machine or my secondary one, or other words, my Anthony 2. To do that, I'm going to use the command put. So I'm just going to do put anaconda-ks.config. And tab complete, bash completion works with that. It completed out my file name. I was able to complete that so quickly because I started typing and then I just hit tab. And again, this assumes you are inside of the current working directory in your local machine. So we hit put, and we do an ls, we now see anaconda-kf.cfg. If we do an ls inside of the main parent directory of our user's home directory, again, the /home/user directory, we see that we now have anaconda-ks.cfg. And that's how we can transfer files between remote systems. We can use secured copy or secured file transfer protocol. So that concludes it for this lesson. Go ahead and complete this lesson.